Okay, so this time we'll be looking at how to collect Windows machine security events and how to integrate them with Microsoft Sentinel. And for that, we'll be using the AMA, Azure Monitor Agent. So if I navigate to Sentinel and then data connectors, I'll be able to see that this connector is available right here. I can open the connector page. Um, Set some data collection rules in order to basically to specify the rules on which logs should be collected from the sources. And by sources, I mean machines and virtual machine scale sets. Basically, any Windows machine. But before that, let me show you what my environment looks like. So basically, I have a single subscription in this case, which is held by this management group. So I have my tenant root group, and then a second management group where my only subscription belongs, right? Okay. This is important, not right now, but in the future when we start defining things in order to collect and specifically when it comes to specifying the rules on how to collect the, um, the events and where to forward them. Um, so this is my landscape in terms of subscription organization, let's say. Then I can show you a resource group that I have here, which is called RG-Sentinel-AMA. And in this resource group, you'll find a log analytics workspace. The most relevant resources are the log analytics workspace, the this virtual machine, and a virtual machine scale set. Okay. Um, if I look at one of these machines, let's pick this one, a virtual machine, and let me just show you the current configurations right before I take any actions. Um, so as you can see here, there are no extensions on this machine, and one of the things that will change also after I apply the configurations I'm about to apply is the identity. So we'll be using a user assigned identity um, as well, as we'll be able to see in a few minutes. Okay. So let's go back to Sentinel and then data connectors, AMA, this one, open connect page and create data collection rule. Okay, so I'm going to say this is my DCR, data collection rule, Sentinel AMA, and with this one, I'll be collecting security events only. This is the resource group and the subscription where the data collection rule will be hosted. That's all that's all that it means. And when it comes to resources, actually, I'm not going to add any in here um, because I need scalability within my directory within my tenant. So I could pick these machines specifically. I could pick a resource group, or I could pick a subscription. I could pick several but not all if I had more than one. But since this is, or in most common use cases, since this is a cross-organization, it usually is a cross-organization type of setup, because we will want to enforce every single machine within a directory. So regardless of the resource group where it belongs or the subscription, um, ultimately will be, in order to enforce this cross-organization uh, effect on the machines, we will go for a management group. As you can see here, we cannot select, and that's why I was showing the management groups before. But as you can see here, I don't get the possibility to pick a management group. So I'm going to leave this. Uh, Actually, I'm going to leave this setting just as it is. I'm going to leave it blank. I'm not going to pick a scope here. I'm going to cancel right here. So I'm leaving the resources page uh, pretty much empty. And then the collection part. So I'm going to pick all security events, and that's it. So where my data collection rule is going to be stored, empty, and then the collection type. So all security events, then review and create. That's it. And it's done. Okay. So my resource group once again. Okay, maybe I should refresh it. Yeah, okay, it's here. So data sources empty, resources empty. I'm sorry, no, data sources, they are not empty. Um, the fact is, because they were created through Sentinel, they don't show up here, which is kind of weird, but it's the way it's the way it is, at least for now. But you will notice if I try to add, and if I try to specify a Windows event log, it won't let me. So I'm within the scope of this data collection rule, okay, and within the scope of this DCR, it won't let me create any other or change or alter this DCR to collect any other Windows event logs. Okay, yes, you can improve it by adding some performance counters, but you cannot change what Sentinel created. That's basically what it means. When it comes to destination, it's implicit. So that's something you cannot change as well because it's been created by Sentinel. So this is something, I mean, it's not very transparent when they say there are no data sources, but it's the way it is. So actually, Sentinel created these for you, and indeed, there is no need to change them. Yeah. So as before, resources none. So now we'll be looking, right now we'll be looking at how to scale. So my machines are blank. I've enabled the connector on Sentinel, and I created a data collection rule. Um, so what I need, and we were also able to see that that my machines are not running any agent, any AMA agent. So those are the steps we are going to perform just now. And for that, we'll be looking at Azure policy. So if I navigate to definitions, there is one that will help us on this endeavor. So deploy Windows. Okay, so this is it. Deploy Windows Azure Monitor Agent with user-assigned managed identity and with an associated data collection rule. Okay. So this is a policy. This is the policy that will do the job for us. It will enforce the agent installation, and it will also assign a data collection rule to these machines, these window machines. Um, because this policy triggers deployments also about the user identity. About the user-assigned managed identity. So because this policy enforces deployments on the machines, it will enforce the deployment of the agents. We need an identity to authorize those installations. That's where the user-assigned managed identity comes from. Okay, so I can see this is not actually a policy, it's an initiative, as you can see here, edit initiative, because it's an initiative in the sense that comprises more than one policy, and these are the policies. So assign a built-in user-assigned managed identity to a virtual machine. So that's step number one. We need to assign it an identity before we force the agent installation. After that, um, we will configure the Windows virtual machine to run AMA with the user-assigned managed identity we just created. Ultimately, and this is the very last step, or the last policy, is to configure Windows machines to be associated with a data collection rule. Okay. Um, so right now I'm going to assign this policy. And for that, and this is the importance for the management groups. If I want my policy to be truly scalable, um, yeah, so this is the importance for management groups. In this case, if I pick this one, or I can even pick the tenant root group, doesn't matter. Um, if I pick the tenant root group, that means this is the top level management group. Management group. So what this means is that this policy will be applicable to any subscription and any virtual machine or Windows machine running within it. So regardless, once again, regardless of the resource group of where it belongs or the subscription. So since I mean, since any machine running within this management group will be affected by the policy. Um, So I'm going to pick the tenant root group to make sure it affects all of the machines within my organization, within my directory. Optionally, I could set subscriptions and resource groups, but I'm not going to do that. So tenant root group, I want to apply this policy to my entire state. And in here, nothing else is relevant. I mean, this part is relevant, but it comes as default, so there's no even need to go there. And if I look at the parameters, because I need to fill this initiative with some parameters, I'll be able to see. So the effect type, first of all, the effect type is deploy if not exists. I could pick. I could pick. A different effect. In this case, deploy if not exists is the one we'll be looking at, because what it means is it will, based on a specific rule, which is looking for machines that are not running the agent, the Azure monitoring agent. So uh, whenever a machine is found non-compliant because they are not running the agent, what will happen is the policy will enforce its installation. That's why it means. That's what it means. Deploy if not exist. So if the agent is non-existent, it will be deployed by the policy. Okay, so bring your own user assigned managed identity. I'm gonna set it to false. Um, and yeah, and because one of the policies is about or enforcing the machines. How do they say? Let me go back. Okay, because one of the policies within this initiative is about configuring Windows machines to be associated with a data collection rule. I need to provide it. Let me go back to parameters. I need to provide it with a data collection rule resource ID. So let's go back to the resource group and then the DCR, and I need the resource ID for this data collection rule. So let me pick here. So I'm clicking right here, JSON view, and I'll be copying this resource ID. Okay? Now that I've collected my data collection rule resource ID, let's go back to Azure policy and then definitions, deploy Windows, and this is the one. I will assign it. The scope will be my management group. The scope for the policy, and then nothing in here. Parameters, show all. The data collection role resource ID, I'm going to paste it here. And bring your own user assigned managed identity. I'm going to set it to false. When it comes to remediation, there's very little to do here because I'm already saying that this policy will be of the deploy if not exists type. So there's no need to. I mean, it's implicit that Azure will create a managed identity for us. Um, Nothing in here, nothing in here. So that's about it. Let's create it. So the initiative has been assigned and the role assignments have been successful. Okay, so policy once again, remediation. Well, it's not showing you. Oh, it's here. Assignment, okay. Policy, compliance. Okay, so it's showing as not started yet. It's not surprising because these changes are very recent. So we can actually see, in any case, we can see the policy, the policies and the remediation tasks associated with this initiative in here. Remediation tasks not found. Okay, let's give it some time. Let's try this. Still no good. Yeah, let's give it some time. I guess that's all we have to do for now. But in any case, just to summarize, so what we did was to assign this initiative, which is comprised by 5 policies, at the scope of a management group. What this will do is that and so we have the 5 policies here. Actually, we cannot see them in here, but let's go back. So we have, let's go to definitions maybe. Okay, deploy, Windows, once again. Okay, so these are the 5 policies that are comprised by this initiative, and what they will do, once again, just to summarize, is that they will assign a built-in user-assigned managed identity to virtual machines, and will do the same for virtual machine scale sets. Um, Next to it, it will install the agent's Azure Monitor agent, uh, and have it to run with the user-assigned managed identity that's been provided, and that applies to virtual machines, and then to, once again, virtual machine scale sets. When it comes to data collection rule, it applies to Windows machines. So regardless if they are virtual machines or virtual machine scale sets, they are still Windows machines. So um, there's a single policy to deal with both scenarios, virtual machines or virtual machine scale sets. So this is what we did at the scope of a management group. Uh, Once these policies are in practice, every single machine or Windows machine within our environment should have the agent installed and the data collection rule associated with. Okay, around 10 minutes went on, so let's go back to Azure policy and see what changed. So still the machines are not compliant to the policy. Um, let's go to remediation. Um, let's note that the machines, the virtual machine scale set and the virtual machine itself, they were existing prior to the policy creation. So in that case, the remediation task is the one that will remediate precisely. It will remediate and make these machines compliant according to the policy. The remediation task applies only to existing resources. Um, so in this case, we have policies to remediate and the updated part the updated part that's starting to look good here, it's here. So configure, let's let's pick, for example, let's pick on this one. Configure Windows machines to be associated with a data collection rule. Okay, this one applies to both virtual machines and virtual machine scale sets. So resources to remediate, you can see here 2 resources within the scope of the management group. In here, we have 2 separate rules for virtual machines and virtual machine skill sets. So 2 policies for each of these resource types. And that's why it's picking just one resource to remediate. Okay, so it's one policy for virtual machine scale sets, one policy for virtual machines, keeping in mind that one of them is for assigning the built-in user-assigned managed identity to the virtual machine and to configure the Windows virtual machine to run AMA. Okay, so let's start from the beginning with virtual machines. So this is my remediation task, okay, the one we've created a few minutes ago, and one resource, just like we've seen before, one resource detected, which is non-compliant, and it's the VM, okay? So it's all about assigning a user-assigned managed identity onto the VM. I'm going to click remediate, and supposedly the task will be created. not here yet, but it's okay. Now we'll do the same. Assign a built-in user assigned managed identity to virtual machine scale sets. Okay, only one resource because we only have one virtual machine scale set. Let's do the same for this one. Back to remediation. Policies to remediate. Okay, it's important to have these two remediated in advance before we configure the agent, before we install the agent and configure it to use the user assigned managed identity. So once again, let's give it some time because these operations usually take some time. So another few minutes went on, and we can see that the compliance page still shows the machines as non-compliant. But I took the opportunity um, to go on the resources themselves and to check on the identity. So if I check on the machine's identity and then user assigned, there you go. This is the built-in user assigned managed identity that the Azure policy created for us. So um, and the same uh, can be perceived for the skill set. Okay, so identity, user assigned, and it's here. And as before we apply the policy, we were able to see that there was no user assigned managed identity applied onto these resources, and now there is, and that's work of the policy that we have applied. So that's the policy in action. Then again, uh, the compliance page is still reporting the machines as non-compliant. If I go on the remediation blade here, um, I still cannot see them, but obviously they ran as the user assigned managed identities were created and assigned onto the machine. So at this point, I believe I'm safe to move forward. And what I'll do next is, so I ran these two about the user assigned managed identities for virtual machines and virtual machine scale sets. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the same for these two policies. So it's about configuring, um, installing the agent and configuring it to to use the user assigned managed identity. I'm going to start with virtual machines. Okay, one virtual machine to remediate. Let's create the task. Okay, and it's created. Back to policies to remediate. I'm going to do the same for virtual machine scale sets. One resource to remediate. Let's create the task. And that's it. Okay, so now at this point, it's the same as before. We need to give it some time um, for the changes or for the remediation tasks, in this case, to take an effect on the resources. And in this occasion, what will happen is okay, a virtual machine and a virtual machine skill set, we will be, oh, it's here. Okay. So as we can see here now, it's already installed the agent. Yeah, as I said before, the compliance page doesn't refresh as quickly as we would wish. Okay, so I can see that the agent is installed already on the virtual machine. Let's check on the scale set. Okay, yes, it's here as well. Okay, these two are good to go. So remediation still okay. It's funny because we still have no remediation tasks here, but if we look here, these two entries are updated already because for the user assigned managed identities, we can see that there are no more resources to remediate. So this one has been handled. Okay, yeah, and the same applies here. Okay, um, when it comes to the initiative, um, we still have two non-compliant resources, the virtual machine and the scale set, but only for 3 policies, because the other two have been remediated already. So remediation, still nothing. Okay, policies to remediate. So the machines have the user assigned managed identity. They have the agent installed. So the only one that is missing is the data collection rule association. So let's remediate that. It's been created. Okay, compliance. Okay, non-compliant, something changed. Non-compliant resources, there's only one, and non-compliance policies, there's one as well. Okay, so let's look at the details. Skill sets. Okay, still showing as non-compliant, but it's acceptable at this point. The virtual machine, just double checking the identity, the extension, the virtual machine skill set now, identity, and and the extension. Okay, let's go back to Azure policy. Nothing changed since we last visited. Okay, so maybe it's time now for checking because the data collection rule or the policy that associates a data collection rule to the machines was the only one being applied within that Azure policy initiative. Um, was the latest one being applied, but in any case, let's see if we have some changes around here. Okay, okay, okay. So it's yeah. So the policy for the data collection rule association has been the task that would remediate the non-compliant resources um, has been executed already. So we can see here that we have these two resources within the scope of this data collection rule. So these two machines, what this means is that these two machines are already forwarding their security logs onto Azure Sentinel, onto Microsoft Sentinel. Data sources, the same as before. Okay, resources. So supposedly these two machines are now reporting to Sentinel. Let's confirm that. Sentinel data connectors, AMA, still no security events. Okay. Might as well be the case for giving it a bit more time as well, just as before. Okay, so back to Sentinel. Another few minutes went on. Let's see if things have changed for us. Data connectors, AMA, security events, and we can now see security events coming in from based on this data collection rule. Okay, let's keep in mind that this data collection rule was enforced by the policy, and the policy we applied at the management group scope. And in order to be able to apply these data collection rules onto the machines, the Windows machines, we have to have the agent installed, the Azure Monitor agent. So that's what the policies, that's what the policies we applied to the management group actually do. So first of all, they get they handled the agent installation and ultimately assigned it the data collection rule. What we have seen this far is the remediation tasks in action. Let's keep in mind that remediation tasks they are created within a within a policies scope in order to deal and to make compliant the existing resources. But obviously the policies also have an impact, or they also have an effect within the future resources. So let's do that exercise. So we have the policy in place. The existing resources have been remediated by the remediation tasks, and they are now compliant. So let's create a new virtual machine, and okay, so this is going to be virtual machine Sentinel AMA, and it's going to be machine number 2, Windows machine number 2. Nothing else needed here. Okay, let's do it like this. And let's review and create the machine. Okay, so it's initializing the deployment. A new machine will be created, and supposedly the policy will take an effect on this resource too. So because the policy was applied at the scope of a management group, any machine um, within its scope will be affected by um, the um, the policies that we have created. Since we have created this brand new Windows machine, um, we'll be able to check. So this is the one, and we'll be able to check on the user identity. It's already created, and the extension is not installed yet. So once again, we need to give it a bit more time. So it's partially compliant at this point. It's a brand new machine in any case, so let's be patient. Let's jump back to Azure policy, compliance. In the meantime, the virtual machine skill set is already reporting as compliant as well. So that's good news. It was not showing as compliant before, so the portal is still updating. Um, what's left for us right now? It's to approve the applicability of the policy for future resources, for resources created after the policy has been applied. Still nothing. Policy compliance. It's not showing, at this point, it's not showing the non-compliant resources at all because the machine is brand new, so it's not being picked yet. So after another while, we can check back on the recently created virtual machine, and identity, as we saw before, was created already, and now for the extensions, this is new, so the extension is installed. Well, let's check on the data collection rule as well. So if we pick resources, we can now see the second Windows machine. It's there too. Um, maybe policy now. Compliance, okay. So we have seen that the policy has already taken an effect on the recently created VM, but still the compliance page is showing. It was not showing the machine at all before, but it's now showing the machine as non-compliant. So let's give it a bit more time. That's all it is. Um, and to prove the actions that were taken on the machines from the very beginning. So let's pick on the most recent one. If we go to activity log, we can actually see um, the policies in action here. So audit if not exists, okay. So it performs an audit in advance, and if the resource is not compliant, then the deploy takes place in order to make the resource compliant to the policies we have applied at the management group scope. So this one is in particular is for the virtual machine extension, which is for the agent installation. And that's about it. Let's check on another one. Maybe we can check on on the first machine being created. Okay, so this one activity log, and there's a lot more because the machine has a few more minutes of age. But that's basically it. The policies in action. So we've been through the procedure in full. Let's check back on Sentinel. Uh, First of all, before wrapping up, let me just check back on policy to see if we have any news here. No, we need to give it a bit more. Okay. Yeah. So ultimately, we've been through the procedure on how to onboard this log source, and ultimately what we'll see is the Windows security events via AMA getting security events through based on a data collection rule which has 3 machines as reporting resources. So this virtual machine skill set, let's keep in mind this first virtual machine and the virtual machine skill set. Let's keep in mind they were created prior to the policy application, um, and by that they were remediated through a remediation task. Which remediation task which is no longer needed for the future resources, because the policy, as soon as the resources are created, in this case Windows machines, so whenever a Windows machine is created within the scope of the management group of our choice, the policy will immediately take an effect on those and remediate them accordingly. So this is the procedure we've been applying, and ultimately the security events via AMA was successfully onboarded as being a log source for Sentinel. And I guess that's it, and thank you.